how can we use concept design as a tool for storytelling? Because that's really what it is, you know. I mean, some people are really talented as concept design as a tool for design, as a tool for, you know, manufacturing of a certain kind of look of, you know, either a toy or either like a hard surface object that's going to be in the game. For me, it's really how are we going to sell a certain kind of drama with a painting, right? And one of the most mystical parts of all of that, and the reason why I decided to focus on color today, is really color. I think it's really a mystical and strange and intriguing and difficult topic to tackle. You know, so I would ask like the class here, like what do you, or who here is struggling or wants to be better at painting with color? Yeah, I know. Me too. Me too. Me included. And you're gonna see some examples, some great examples, and you're gonna see some bad examples that I've done. I think we can learn from that, you know, because color is just so hard. And what is it? Like I'll ask you guys, what is it about color that you feel is the most difficult? Anyway. Color relationships, everything. Color relationships, interesting. What do you mean by relationships? Oh, harmonies and complementary colors and contrast. Oh, seems so like clinical, seems so like color theory in a design school. We're gonna paint Munsell chips, you know, on gouache, and then you're gonna lay them out in a nice little notebook. And then you're gonna find that thing 5 years later and you're gonna throw it away. You know, that's the difficult thing about learning color theory, is the sort of the clinical, scientific, and esoteric language of it all. And really, our friend up front here has kind of touched upon what the most important thing is, which is harmony. You know, so I'm just gonna advance here in my lecture. Yeah, what makes for good color? Harmony, right? Harmony is just, I mean, that's also a very sort of ethereal word. It's really hard to define what you would say harmony is. What would you guys guess harmony is in terms of color? A pleasing palette. Pleasing palette. So that means that there's good relationships. Things are related to one another. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It looks good. Well, could a harmonious palette be unpleasing to look at?
It can be very easily become boring.
It could become boring. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I've been there. You know, when you're painting a piece and you're like, oh, I'm just bored with these colors. I've used that green so many times. I've used that yellow so many times. I mean, how many people feel like that? Like, I only paint with the colors that I paint with. You know? Yeah, right. It's just I mean, I'm there too. Like, there's this one little green that I like. It's this desaturated yellow green, and I use that all over. It's right here, in fact. You know, and it's very attractive, and for some reason, we're drawn to certain colors more than other colors. I don't know why, but that's how it is. Like how we grew up, or what toys we had when we were a kid, or you know, what color our mother's dress was when we were 5, or you know, the color of our school logo, something like that. Those all probably, I don't know, have an effect on what makes for our color taste. So let's take a look at some examples. We're gonna have a little interactive experience here, where we can see different kinds of color swatches, and you guys tell me if you guys think the color is harmonious or not harmonious, if you like it or you don't like it. So let's take a look at this. What do you guys think about this particular, a little bit more here, this particular color palette? I mean, right off the bat, what do you think? Harmonious? Really? Oh, gee, thanks.
I'll do some sort of like sports.
Some kind of
Or
forest?
some sort of like Amazon thing going on.
Some sort of Amazon thing? It's kind of got that sort of rainbow jungle type thing.
Like I see like something going on.
Interesting. But what would you say the main focus in this palette is?
It's like this middle.
Cools? Is it cools?
See the water.
He says the warms. He says the warmth. Interesting. They're like straight up analyzing it up there. It's all very middle tone value. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, well we'll move on. What about this? Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I think it's all subjective, but you guys can say whatever you want. There's really no right or wrong answer, to tell you the truth. Both of these were actually what I felt were failures out of my own paintings that I did early on several years ago. And I didn't want to find other people's failures. I wanted to find my own, because that would have been embarrassing. But I feel like there's not enough focus in these. Like, what is this color about? You know, if this was a sketch, it would be a pretty lousy sketch. You know, it would be pretty all over the place. There's these greens here, there's blues, there's golds, there's pinks, purples, there's all these light greens. There's no focus, you know? And it doesn't, the thing that I use in order to judge what is good color is really, does this give me a sense of emotion, a sense of story, a sense of mood? And when I look at this, I mean, I think rainbow Skittles. I think, you know, I think a candy store, but I don't think of a specific kind of emotion. So I think color has that great ability to make us think and feel a certain way, and this is not making me think and feel in a certain way. Maybe it is for you guys. Maybe it's like, oh, it feels scattered. Right, exactly. Hey, don't try. I'm just kidding. So when I was doing these large paintings, I'll show you a piece, a very large painting in which I've got to deal with a lot of color. It can be very scattered. This is not the palette that I just showed you, but when you deal with a lot of things, the tendency is that you go Skittles, you know, with it. You know, no offense to Skittles. But especially when you have lasers and things with different local color, and you've got, you know, different planets, and you've got explosions, and that's when it becomes really hard to manage. So that's why, like, I like to really like zoom in, and when I look at like a certain portion, I'm like, oh, okay, here the colors seem to be a little bit more harmonious, you know. But this piece wasn't about selling color. Now, when I use less color is when I find that I could be more successful. Because less is more when it comes to color. The more color you infuse, the more confusion you're going to have. And that mood that you wanted to have the audience feel is never going to be there. It's never going to be, you're never going to achieve that, because there's just going to be like, oh, what time of day is that? Oh, is that dog white, or is it brown, or is it pink or gray? So you want clarity. So we're going to discuss what the hell that means. Again, very, very little color, just warms and cools. And when you distill things down to just warms and cools, oh, you can be very, very successful. And in fact, if you guys want to get good at color, just paint warms and cools. And just pick 2 colors and paint with those 2 colors for like a whole year and master all of the saturation and tonal changes within cerulean blue and cad yellow. Well, let's take a look at some good examples. So I got my buddy here. His name is Dave Merritt. He went to Art Center, and we worked together on a job. And let's take a look at one of his palettes. Look at this palette, right? It's simple. It's really only 2 colors. Take a look at the piece itself. That's done on Canson paper using pastels. It's colored Canson paper. I believe it was gray Canson paper. And why does this appear more harmonious? Because he's using the color of the Canson paper, right? It already shifts all the colors towards one certain kind of color direction. Look at these, right? When I look at these, this gives me a sense of emotion. Like each one of these gives me kind of this moody, sunset-y type vibe, and I mean that's what's here, right? This sort of moody, sunset-y type vibe. I feel like I'm out in nature, which is, you know, definitely part of his identity. And here's another piece that he did. And look at that. I mean, this is just warms and cools. There's a little pink in the sky, but there's mainly desaturated blues, some saturated blues, a touch of, you know, light warms, and you know, you're done. Simple, simple. Look at this one. This one is probably one of my favorite pieces that he's done. And David has a real talent for color shifts and color variations. He painted on a John Neverez drawing. It's featured on John Neverez's blog, but this is a fantastic, fantastic image. So he's doing work for Transformers right now, and he paints with a round brush, an elliptical brush, with full opacity, no transfer on this brush. So that means he has to be super confident what color he's selecting. That's really hard. I mean, that takes some serious cojones. So let's take a look at someone a little older. And who knows Dean Cornwell here? Yes? Dean's a good friend of mine. Look at this Dean Cornwell palette. I mean, I don't even know what is there right now, but I know that this painting is good because there's a depth, a richness in the saturation. Tonally speaking, value-wise, it's there. I mean, there's already, in a way, a certain composition of sorts. And when we take a look at the final piece, you're like, oh, wow. You know, there's no confusion here. There's no pastel-y greens or, you know, pinks and purples where you don't need them. It's very focused. Very, very focused. Let's take a look at this one. I love this palette. This palette's insane. All I've done is I've just mosaicked these pieces just to better understand what the range of colors are. And mosaic is pretty much like a really nice learning tool to understand what's going on color-wise, right? Because you can see the proportion of cool to warm, right? Very little cool, but a lot of cool neutrals and a lot of warms in the high value range. And that's really interesting. I know, to me. Do you guys find that interesting? Look at this one. This one's pretty amazing. It's look at all these highlights. They're all cool. They're all that like beautiful green I love. And there's the piece. I mean, the shadows are pretty much all one color, and everything has this sort of warm vibe to it. Love it. Let's take a look at someone familiar. John's work. I asked John if I could show this stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, sure. Why?" And I think you know there's actually a nice identity here when we take a look at all these pieces. Okay, all of his pieces have this like beautiful sort of schmaltz yellow as the highlight. This sort of acid wash, you know, fluorescent highlighter sort of yellow to it, and that's confidence. To me, I'm like, dude, I don't know how you rock that, but it looks great. His tendency is towards that, or at least for this series, right? So you can kind of see now we're looking at color in terms of an identity or in terms of following a certain kind of progression for a certain story. So like all these colors that he did for these little warriors, they're all pretty much in a way very, very similar, right? High proportion of warms, very low proportion of neutrals, and then almost no cools. These are kind of reading cool, but really they're just neutrals. It's like this gray is almost this gray right here. Right, that's actually pretty interesting. There's there's someone who I want to, well, we'll take a look at some more examples later, but someone who I wanted to reference now is one of my favorite painters, fine art painter named Jenny Saville. And Jenny Saville paints these hauntingly large, scary images of portraits of people in their decomposing forms. And they're, I believe, I'm not sure what medium they are. I'm tempted to say they're oil, but these are huge. These are like 4 or 5 times the size of the wall that we're looking at right now. And the thing that makes her work so remarkable is that she pre-mixes all these colors. She spends like a whole week pre-mixing all of these colors. She's not mixing on the spot like us, you know, digital painters. She's like got mason jars lined around her studio, and she spent all this time, you know, selecting those exact colors. And it's creepy, but it's fantastic. I believe this is the image in the SF MoMA. And I mean, look at these. And all these fit within that family. And when I look at this palette right here, I think, Jenny Saville, you know, all the way. Those greens, those blues, in proportion with those warm skin tones, I think, oh yeah, definitely her. And when I was reading a little excerpt from her book, I realized, oh my God, like the reason why she's so good is she's pre-mixing. We should do that in digital. Why don't we do that in digital? That would be amazing. Do you know how much time you would save if you pre-mixed all your colors? Does anyone pre-mix their colors in Photoshop at all? Yes, one brave man. Awesome. And what happens? What happens when you pre-mix? I'm so glad that you mentioned process. Bing. Yeah, it keeps you in control. I mean, that's the fantastic thing about a process, is that you cannot be out of control because you know what's happening at every single step of the way. And with color, you got to grab the bull by its horns and say, you know what? I'm only going to be dealing with this portion of my painting right now. I'm only going to be painting with my cools right now. I'm only going to be painting with my warms right now. And if you discipline yourself, you're going to find that what felt limiting is now going to free you up and allow you to have more fun with painting. I mean, who wants to have more fun with painting, right? Yes? Not everyone raised their hand. Very concerning. I mean, I want to have more fun with painting too. And you know what? When I started to pre-mix, when I started to break down my process and make it my own specific process, that's when I started to have fun. You know, and you guys are going to find that for yourself. Like, don't take my word for it. Just try it yourself. Oh, quick note. This process I'm going to show you here is in no means my own. I have kit bashed. I believe it was your name Jordan? No, Mike. That's what I said. Mike mentioned kit bashing, and in a way, I've kit bashed my own process. And that's something that it's just taken time. It's just taken time to do. So who have I kit bashed or stolen this process from? I'd love to take credit for it, but I cannot. It would be Mr. James Gurney. You can find out more at gurneyjourney.blogspot.com and his amazing book, Color and Light, which is like $17 on Amazon. He catalogs this so well for traditional paint. What I felt the need to do for myself was, you know what, I have to just do this for digital. If I do this for digital, maybe one day I could paint as well as he does digitally, but that I haven't gotten there yet, so I'll let you know how that goes. So he basically talks about this wheel. This wheel is a very simple wheel. It's called the Yurmby wheel. Y-U-R-M-B-Y. And it starts with yellow as the 12 o'clock position and then goes around. And the thing that makes this special is that it is, one, a subtractive color wheel, and with each step going towards a zero chroma gray, a zero chroma neutral. So again, the esoteric vocabulary is not important. Basically what's happening, you're losing saturation as you go to the center. You mix this color with that color, and then you get this color. That's all you need to know. Very, very simple. And you can find this online very quickly. Just search the URMB color wheel, Y-U-R-M-B-Y. And what do I do with this wheel? This is a very simple little diagram that I have just put together just to explain what it is that this is about. So the whole idea of color and successfully painting with color is not painting with all colors. So the graduate industrial design chair at Art Center, Andy Ogden, he said, oh, I've got a friend and he's not so good with color. And this is what he said to me. He said, I'm great with color. I use all of them. Yeah, that's how you know you're not good with color. You're good with color if you discipline yourself to make very few colors work and make it look like you're using all the colors in the world. So all we're doing is we're restricting ourselves with a mask towards which colors we can choose and which colors we cannot choose. So this whole painting has been created with only these colors, of course, stepped out in terms of its values here, but not this color, not this color. Like I needed a green, right, for the trees, this really simple piece. I need green for the trees and grass. But here, there was no greens. So what did I have to do? I had to take this desaturated blue, mix it with this ochre yellow, and come up with this green. And if we actually like color pick here, what is it? It's a desaturated yellow. But relatively speaking, we end up with a green because simultaneous contrast will shift all the colors towards the colors that they need to be. That means that we can't judge colors alone without seeing them in relationship to each other. And that's all that this is doing. So again, make a mask, create your palette within all the different tonal varieties, then boom, make a color key. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. Just play around and then paint your painting. Now you've made all your color decisions before making your color decisions. That's the key. Any questions so far?
If you're going to build things up in grayscale, how did you apply this process of remixing to it?
I'm so glad you asked that.
It's almost like it was on the script.
I know. No, actually, I have wondered that question a lot. There's so many different ways that you can go about that. If you ask Armand Serrano, do you guys know Armand Serrano? Armand Serrano is an amazing animation designer, visual development artist, sorry. And he says that, oh, you can colorize your grayscale drawing just by using the color blending mode. Well, that only works for Armand because his values are spot on in terms of what the local values are that correspond to those objects. And his value structure is just perfect. And that's what experience teaches you. But at the point in which, you know, the rest of us humans are at, that's not going to work. What I would recommend is instead of saying how am I gonna make that grayscale work in terms of color, I'm gonna just repaint the whole thing. So we're gonna do that because the problem with there's so many different problems with it. I mean, your edges are all messed up, your values are all messed up. You might as well just repaint it. You're gonna spend so much more time repainting it than colorizing. So if you ask my friend and once co-worker Jason Kang, who is now at Gearbox, he does a value sketch, and he doesn't colorize. He says, you know what? I redo the whole piece in color after. He's memorized all of the value stepping in his head, and then he applies it to the color right after. So yeah, you got to paint it twice, but the question is, do you want a good piece?
I just have a question when it comes to color mixing. Because digital handles it very different from traditional. Do you have any, I guess, tips
for color mixing?
For color mixing,
Yes. We're gonna get into that a little bit. There's a couple brushes that work really, really well for mixing with color. So when we start to mix some of our palettes, then ask that question. Remind me one more time. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, you know what? Let's just do it. Sorry, just keeping an eye on our time here. 5 and we go till, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, we got time. We got time. All right, so let me kind of show you. Let's see. So like this is what my workstation looks like when I'm painting a painting or a series of paintings. You know that like blue and white oil painting box where you put palette paper in, and then you would mix it, and then you would mix it with like linseed oil. Does anyone know what that is anymore? The two people in the front, they're like, I've heard of oil paints. So that's my background. I've been painting since I was a kid, and I've been painting and drawing since I was a kid. And we learned by painting with titanium white, raw umber, and ultramarine blue, Winsor Newton colors, and that was all you got to paint for like 2 years before they gave you CAD and alizarin and Viridian and everything else. And you know what that helped? That helped with understanding warms, cools, it helped with understanding values. So all I'm trying to do is go back to my childhood and explain to you how I kind of learned color, you know. I mix everything on a palette. I don't do this business. This is, guys, like if you wanna succeed in color, you cannot live in this world. Like you're gonna be painting stuff for film or for video games. It's gonna be seen on either a 60-inch screen or a 60-foot screen, and you're selecting your colors off this 1 by 1 inch slider. That's just offensive. Like the depth of your painting is so much more than some pre-programmed algorithmic tool here. You know, I mean, yeah, you're going to use this from time to time, and I do, of course I do. But let's have a large area in which we can choose colors from, right? What is the problem with choosing colors from this slider? What do you guys think? What's one problem that you may have selecting colors from this color picker menu? Color range being,
You might make like a saturated color choice, but then it's easy to saturate.
so it's totally out of balance. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like you're painting completely out of context. You're selecting colors completely out of context, which is not good. And also, how many colors are there? Does anyone know? Actually, I don't even know. It's millions. There's millions of colors. You know how many colors in a Caravaggio painting? 2. No one's complaining about Caravaggio paintings, guys, that he didn't have, you know, lime cerulean or whatever color we want to call this.
You also have to make your selection based on what
Yes, yes, exactly. Which is why I set up a little palette so I can see, you know, and I do a little crappy little sketch, you know, of just to see if things work. So, I mean, what do you say? Let's go ahead and get started on a piece here. So what I wanted to do was I was thinking about, oh, like, what piece am I going to do for this demo? And I wanted to find something that I had already done the black and white sketch for. So some of you may have seen this on my Gumroad, but this is the black and white value sketch that I did. And I go through like how to do the drawing and then how to do the values and how to do the lighting and everything. But this may be a good starting off point, a good black and white or grayscale, whatever you want to call it, where we'll be able to flesh out the colors to bring this scene to life. We're just going to ask a couple really simple questions, which is, what kind of feeling do we want from a scene like this, right? There can be so many different kinds. What's one adjective, perhaps, that you would use to describe a scene like this?
Cold.
Cold. Cold? Yeah, I like cold. What's another adjective? Intimidating. That's good. I like that a lot. Now I don't know how that's going to translate to color. Good luck.
Oh, what did you say? Contrast?
Contrast. Not exactly a feeling-based word, but you may want to say tense, right? If you turned it into a feeling-based word. So like that's all it is. So well, let's write that down. Let's write that down. I'm all about writing things down. So what did we say here? We said